Hey guys, welcome to our last notes video for this unit. Woo! So in this unit, we've been talking about imperialism and how America kind of hated imperialism. But today we're getting into talking about the Spanish-American War, which is really when America starts gaining some influence in different areas of the globe, taking over some different territories. So just some background on the Spanish-American War before we hop into that. So America had wanted influence in Cuba for a while, a hot minute, but Congress had not allowed military intervention in Cuba until Cuba had revolted against Spain in 1895. So in 1895, Cuba revolts against Spain, and Spain sends troops in to kind of quell the rebellion and get it under control, and they place a ton of Cubans in concentration camps. So when America kind of sees how many Cubans are dying in concentration camps, and the estimate is around 200,000 people dying in concentration camps, people wanted to take action. And yellow journalism has a lot to do with this. So exaggerated news reports of all of this stuff happening about concentration camps and things plays a role in spreading this news to the American public, and we want to take action. So President McKinley warns Spain to kind of back off, leave Cuba alone, or face war with the United States. And that does not, have much effect on Spain. Spain's like, whatever, we're going to still keep putting people in concentration camps in Cuba. It's fine. You can threaten us all you want. So we end up having to follow through with our threat. So McKinley states in his declaration of war that America is going to go to war for American peace of mind and an end to economic uncertainty is our reasons for going to war. Okay, so this is kind of recap because we've already looked at the USS Maine a little bit. So although McKinley had threatened war against Spain, it takes him 3 full years to kind of follow through on that promise. And it took the sinking of the USS Maine, which is the boat that we looked at documents for last week. So it took the sinking of the USS Maine to actually create a big enough outrage in the United States for him to go to Congress to get approval for this war. So the USS Maine was a battleship that McKinley had sent to Cuba to protect U.S. property and citizens who were living in Cuba at the time. And while we now believe that the Maine had sunk due to an internal explosion, yellow journalists, the people who I mentioned in the last slide, were very quick to accuse Spain and develop the slogan, "Remember the Maine, to hell with Spain," to kind of rally public support for war against Spain. So the war with Spain actually begins in the Philippines, which is another Spanish colony, when Admiral Dewey destroys the entire Spanish fleet in the Pacific at Manila Bay. And Teddy Roosevelt resigns as Secretary of Navy at this point so that he can go and found the Rough Riders and take down the Spanish at San Juan Hill, which limits the amount of Spanish reinforcements who are able to enter Cuba. So this is how the Spanish-American War begins on the Philippine front, but we're actually kind of fighting to protect Cuba. So Spanish-American War is kind of fought on 2 fronts. So I don't need you to know like a ton about what went on during the Spanish-American War. We just kind of want the results of it. So the war with Spain only lasts 4 months total, with relatively little loss on the American side. So we have 400 Americans die in combat, and 5,000 dying from disease or poor medical care, from like injuries and things like that. But that's it. So 4-month war, like 5,000 dead, and that's it. And we gain a ton from this war. So a lot of the times, the Spanish American War is referred to as the Splendid Little War because we lost very little and gained a ton. So the Treaty of Paris is what ends the war and guarantees our peace with the Spanish. So it guarantees us Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines as territories. And although the Filipinos lead a 3-year war against the US when we take over, leaving 4,200 of our troops dead, they still remain under our control until 1946. And then the Teller Amendment had been a stipulation by Congress when they declared war, in order to guarantee Cuba would remain free from foreign control after the war. So basically, it's guaranteeing that the US cannot annex Cuba, and we have to kind of leave the fate of Cuba up to the people of Cuba to kind of decide for themselves what they want to do. And then the Platt Amendment is another agreement between Cuba and the United States. So the U.S. will remain, or they'll remove, the U.S. will remove their remaining troops after the war had ended, and it asked that Cuba kind of refrains from entering agreements with foreign powers that would threaten Cuba's freedom. And it guarantees that America can intervene in Cuba as seen fit. So if they do get involved in like foreign affairs with people, we can get involved as well. And we're allowed to keep a naval base on Cuba, and that's called Guantanamo Bay. I'm sure you guys have heard of that before. So America, we've been leased land by Cuba. We've gained Guam, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. So the Spanish-American War kind of just opens up America to new areas of influence, and it develops an American version of imperialism. So we have all these territories now, but we're really only taking care of or taking over this land as like a way to maintain naval influence in different parts of the world. So we're not using it in the way that, say, Great Britain has used it in the past, but we are, changing our minds a little bit on imperialism. So the Spanish-American War changes the way Americans are viewing imperialism, and it establishes us as a superpower in this new world order. Okay. And that is it for the notes video, our last one for this unit. So, good job. Make sure you get all your work done for this unit, and I'll see you next unit.